What's up, Taiwan? I'm Joyce Tseng here in Taipei with the latest news. No one said it would be easy. Ching-te is just days into his new job as Taiwan's president, and he is facing two huge tests of his leadership: an angry China and growing discontent domestically. As we speak, protesters are gathering outside the legislature, getting ready for another round of demonstrations over contentious reforms being pushed through by the opposition. The new bills are so divisive, they have sparked fistfights among lawmakers. We'll have more on those protests and what it all means for Lai in a moment. But we begin with what China is calling punishment drills that are happening right now around Taiwan. China has ships encircling the country, and this could be just the beginning of what more large-scale exercises look like. John Van Trieste has the latest.
请你立即调整航向，如执意进入我24海里临街区，我方将采取驱离行动。
Taiwan's Coast Guard sends a warning to a Chinese ship taking part in what Beijing says are exercises meant to punish Taiwan. China claims Taiwan, and for the third time since 2022, has surrounded it with warships. This time, it's unhappy about the recent inauguration of President Lai Ching-te, who it sees as an advocate for Taiwan's independence. President Lai, in just his first week in office, has struck a defiant tone.
我会和国军弟兄姐妹站在第一线，共同守护国家安全。此时此刻，国际社会正高度关注民主台湾，而面对外在的挑战与威胁，我们会持续捍卫自由民主的价值，守护区域的和平稳定。
Taiwan's military has set up a response center and sent fighter jets to enhance naval defense. It's also condemned China's moves.
它就是要达到它所谓的地区上认为他们有主控权，那这是非常不明智的行为。我们绝对不是一个麻烦制造者，但是大家可以看得出来，今天的麻烦制造者就是中共。
Like previous drills, these Chinese moves have had a limited impact on civilian life. Chinese ships have stayed over 24 nautical miles from the coast, outside Taiwan's contiguous waters. But some military analysts worry these drills may not be like the maneuvers Taiwan's grown used to.
蛮类似全面大规模入侵的可能的假想太一样的一种演习，所以它包括可能会需要夺取制空权、制海权、制电池权，甚至制太空权。
And it isn't just Taiwanese officials on edge. Japan's chief cabinet secretary says Tokyo and allies like the U.S. will remind Beijing of the importance of stability in the Taiwan Strait. And the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command says it's important to take the Chinese president's order to be ready for an invasion of Taiwan by 2027 seriously. But it says a war is not imminent and is avoidable. Still, China's ongoing exercises suggest tensions in the Taiwan Strait are not going to ease anytime soon. Kama Xu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's defense ministry says that 49 Chinese military aircraft and 19 naval ships have taken part in the exercises. The ministry says most of China's warships and military aircraft are operating west of Taiwan in the Taiwan Strait. Beijing says the drills are set to last until the end of Friday in these 5 areas. Taiwan's military is also reporting about a dozen Chinese Coast Guard ships operating near the outlying islands of Jingmen and Matsu. The military has scrambled aircraft and deployed missile defense systems in response to the drills. The exercises taking place around Taiwan are some of the largest in history. But what is China trying to accomplish? To find out, Jaime Ocon spoke to Brian Hart, a security analyst with the China Power Project in Washington, D.C.
So Brian, I want to first start off with these drills as a whole. What is Beijing trying to say? What's the message they're trying to give off of conducting such large-scale drills around Taiwan?
China described these, as a move to punish Taiwan, and they've used some of the similar language as the previous large-scale exercises as being aimed at separatist forces. So it's certainly aimed in part at that. I think they've also made clear that a lot of their responses this week have been aimed at punishing the United States as well. And that's something, again, we've also seen with some of the previous exercises. When it comes to the operational level, I think a couple of things stand out to me with these exercises. I think The geographic scope of the zones is quite large. I think these zones, first of all, the fact that they published the zones at all is significant. They did not do that in April of last year during the large exercises then. So this is the first time they've done that since the August 2022 exercises after the Pelosi visit. I think another thing also that, that is significant that didn't happen compared to the PLA exercises in August is we did not have the large ballistic missile firings, live firings over Taiwan. So that, of course, was one of the most provocative things that China did in 2022, and we haven't seen that. So I think that's significant.
Now, looking more closely at the tactical level, what is China's military trying to accomplish from an operational level with these drills surrounding Taiwan?
I think from the tactical and operational level, I think one of the biggest things that I see is the integration of the Coast Guard here in ways that I think are new compared to what we've seen in past exercises. I think that's, probably not that surprising given how much Coast Guard activity we've seen in recent months after incidents like Kinmen. And on that note, as you know, the exercises are labeled 2024A. So that very much sends, to me, a signal that there could be a follow-on B, C, or D as we go along. I mean, the most important thing, I think, at a high-level view about these exercises, to me, is they establish a pretty clear pattern of behavior now, that when China is, angry at something that Taiwan or the United States does around Taiwan, China responds with these large-scale exercises. That means that for them, the military has become a key messaging tool for them to, show their displeasure and show their capabilities.
That was our reporter Jaime Ocon speaking to Brian Hart from the China Power Project in Washington, D.C. Let's get more now on the challenges Lai is facing on the domestic front. Lawmakers are back in the legislature to vote on controversial reforms that have split the country. Rick Lauert is at the legislature in central Taipei for us. Rick, are we seeing a repeat of the dramatic scene that unfolded on Tuesday?
Well, yes, is the short answer. It's been another rowdy day here at Taiwan's legislature. We've seen lawmakers shouting at one another, chanting slogans and waving their flags and banners. That's all as the two main opposition parties push through reforms that they say will give this legislature more power to hold the government and others to account. Those opposing those reforms, of course, saying that this is the death of democracy and could even pose a risk to national security. But with their majority, those opposition parties have been voting on the clauses. They voted on one that would require the president to come to Parliament and answer questions, and another that would criminalize lying to the legislature. So this, with China's military drills around Taiwan, are adding to quite a challenging start to Lai Ching-te's presidency. A display of its disapproval. China sends military ships to surround Taiwan just days after the island nation inaugurated a new leader. Beijing claims sovereignty over the self-ruled country and sees its new president as a dangerous separatist for espousing Taiwanese democracy. These drills, Beijing says, a punishment for Lai's inauguration speech.
我们也要向世界宣告，民主自由是台湾不可退让的坚持。 和平是唯一的选项，繁荣是长治久安的目标。
Despite winning the presidency for his Democratic Progressive Party, or the DPP, Lai now faces a hostile legislature in the hands of more China-leaning opposition parties. They took their seats weeks before Lai's inauguration and have been rushing through controversial reforms that would allow Parliament to investigate government officials and citizens, which leaders of main opposition party, the Kuomintang or KMT, say will bring greater accountability.
What we want to achieve is to, as I said, to consolidate and refine our democratic system. So we wanted to say a better check and balance, a more balanced executive versus legislative power.
Disputes in the chamber have descended into violence. Lai's ruling DPP accuses the opposition of stifling debate and not following parliamentary procedures, and say the reforms could make Taiwan more vulnerable to Chinese aggression.
all these pro-China legislators who visit China pretty often, they could initiate this kind of investigation and putting some sort of pressure on people who dislike China. So that's why I think the democracy might break with this bill.
Public opinion is also split. There have been large street protests supporting both sides of the legislature. And the Chinese military drills, continuing for a second day, have put this sensitive region on edge.
Lai has a very difficult task, but the first year I'd expect him to be very severely tested. And I guess what he needs to do is to show both people in Taiwan and also the world that he's able to handle stress, that he's not going to crack under pressure.
Lai is sticking to his guns and refusing to flinch in the face of Chinese aggression. He's promised to push ahead with bolstering national defence, putting Taiwan's resolve on display. But with his leadership facing challenges both at home and abroad, less than a week into the job, this new president is already having to prove his mettle. Chris Ma and Rick Lowett for TaiwanPlus. With all the objections and squabbling, this session looks like it's going to continue throughout the day and even well into the night. And voting on all of the clauses is unlikely to finish until next week. Meanwhile, protests are ongoing outside of the parliament. They're likely to swell later. So as China demonstrates the external threat to the country, internally we're seeing a very politically divided Taiwan.
Certainly, we'll be keeping an eye on these developments. Thanks, Rick. That was Rick Lowert speaking live from the legislature in Taipei. Meanwhile, outside, protesters are once again filling the streets for the third rally against the controversial reforms. Sally Jensen has been speaking to people there.
Protesters are gathering outside the legislature to fight against what they say is an attack on Taiwan's democracy. They're angry about a series of bills that opposition parties are trying to push through that would expand legislative powers.
这议案在完全没有进行实质讨论，然后就这样推出去，然后现在要2读，然后就要3读，我觉得这样对台湾未来的民主法治是非常的不好的。
国民党跟民众党他如何侵犯台湾，然后如何要把立法院变成香港的立法局，那希望台湾人要警觉这件事情。
你如果没有揭露，就会被罚款，而且连续罚款，这个东西是对国家安全非常严重的。
While the opposition has hit back at accusations of opaqueness, these protesters say the bills would weaken Taiwan's freedom and sovereignty, which is an especially thorny issue right now as China encircles Taiwan, threatening its freedom from the outside. Some here say that Taiwan's freedom is already under attack from the inside.
因为现在中共就是利用内部的势力、亲中的势力来去分裂我们的台湾的民主，利用民主制度分裂民主，我觉得是很严重的。
在这个法案在被通过之前，我们应该要去审慎的考虑说，中国现在对我们的敌意的这么强，对，那他是不是有可能去利用这件事情？
This is the third protest here in less than a week, and thousands more people are expected to arrive later in the day. Ryan Wu and Sally Jensen in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Good news for diving enthusiasts. A rare Barracuda tornado has been spotted in waters off Taiwan's southern coast. A diving instructor captured the fish grouping up in Ching-te, drawing the attention of local divers. They say it's a rare chance to see the spectacle without going abroad. As the area's peak tourist season approaches, experts say novice divers hoping to see the fish should be careful of strong currents and bring an instructor along. Wildlife researchers say barracudas form tornadoes for safety and to find mates.
群游的话呢，其实也是类似在休息啊，主要是这样的话呢，可以保护自己。更大型的鱼来吃它的话呢，它们一整群的话呢，会扰乱这个大鱼的那个视觉效果，一般的大鱼就不容易觅食。
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Check out this 2-meter tall plant blooming in a botanic garden in Belgium before you go. It's one of the world's largest and smelliest plants. I'm Joyce, and take care and see you next time.